Hello and welcome to another edition of the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Be sure to follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me as always, Harris Wichard, and special guest today, Jonathan Ebrahimi. What's up, guys? How you doing on this Saturday?
Hey, guys. Good to be back. Always a pleasure to be on the podcast. I'm doing pretty good. Just watching a little bit of college basketball and ready to talk about the NBA.
Now that it's a final, I wish I was doing better, but one of my Final Four teams, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, have been eliminated from the NCAA tournament, so I'm actually miserable right now. And the fact that I will probably have zero chance. If I get the champion, but a lot of people have Villanova, so it's not looking too good. So maybe I move on from March early. I'll probably still watch a bunch of the games, but I'm almost ready for the NBA playoff mode to clock in right now.
Yeah, no, I'm fiending for the NBA playoffs, but like you said, March Madness has been going on. That's what the hype's at right now. What have you guys saw from this first round of the tournament?
Well, for me, one of the most interesting things was that there wasn't a lot of upsets, and a lot of the 6 seeds, I think 3 of the 4 lost to the 11th seed. I think only one of them went through the next round, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely weird when you see like a specific number not have success. So you definitely don't want to be one of those 6 seeds.
That Oklahoma State-Michigan game was really good, though. That came down to the wire. Early candidate for game of the year.
Yeah, there have been some crazy finishes. I feel bad for the kid from Vanderbilt who committed a foul with his team up by 1. They lost to Northwestern. And, there's just some drama, but from what I understand, the prestige of this tournament is that the 13, 14, 15 seed that pulls an incredible upset early on, which we've been deprived of a little bit, but it's going to create some great matchups going forward. And West Virginia just beat Notre Dame, and then several other, matchups of 1-8s, 4-5s. You mentioned the 6-11, which is sometimes strange when you see a pattern like that. But, definitely some drama, some great moments, a questionable flagrant foul call. You've had a little bit of drama, but for the most part, it still hasn't been quite mad yet, as they call it.
Yeah, we haven't seen the madness yet. I'm more excited for the next few rounds because this is where you get to see the elite teams versus the elite teams, and you kind of get a better idea of these prospects when they're playing against higher level of competition, better coached teams, higher basketball IQs on the floor. So this is where it starts to get good. Is there any specific matchup upcoming that you guys are interested in seeing, or is going to really be good for somebody who's looking for NBA prospects?
I'll let you go on that one, Harris.
Yeah, you know what? I told you guys, and I've felt, obligated to talk about it. I like Leaf. I like the combination of Ball and Leaf out there in UCLA. There's definitely some camaraderie out there in the way they play. And I just think Ball's vision is something that I haven't seen in the sport of college basketball in a long time. And I think his stock will continue to rise, and as long as his dad stays out of this business.
Yeah, his dad has definitely caught the hype, but it's nice to see Alonzo play so well that people still talk about his game and they don't just talk about his dad. Like, he's had some Jason Kidd comparisons, which definitely, a high comparison right there. And his feel for the game and his passing ability and these like nifty plays that you see him make is definitely unique from a player in college. And it's nice to see. And how far his team goes in this in this tournament can determine his spot in the draft. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I like Justin Jackson. There's a forward on UNC who's been very solid throughout the course of the year. And, there's some guys. It's a deep draft, but, it's a scene. And there are some good freshman players, but there are some also juniors and seniors to keep an eye on as well. I like the forward from Oregon, Dylan Brooks. He averaged about 16 a game. There's some decent players, and the thing I like most about it right now is it's wide open, and there's no clear-cut favorite. We've had years in the past where there's a clear-cut team that's going to be the favorite, and that's just not the case this year.
Yeah, or even there's like 2 or 3 teams that it's going to be one of them in the final matchup. But if you're like me and you don't watch college basketball a year, you can go to OTGBasketball.com. Some of our writers do a great job doing, the top 5 prospects, some mock drafts to kind of get you in line with what to expect from these guys. But enough about college basketball. Let's talk some NBA. This week, Dwyane Wade went out for the season with a fracture in his elbow. This is obviously his first season with Chicago, his hometown, after playing in Miami his whole career. How would you grade his season so far, and what do you think this is going to impact the Bulls?
If I was to grade his season, I'd probably give him a B+ on the season. He's still a really good player, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. For the Bulls, I've been low on them all season. I said from the beginning that they didn't have the right mix of players to be successful in today's NBA. Although they're big names, their game doesn't translate well in today's NBA, and I felt that they were kind of doomed from the start. I think Wade's injury is kind of the nail in the coffin here, and I really don't think that the Bulls are going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this has to be the case with Dwyane and coming back home. And, we had that controversy early in the year. This is a team that seems to be able to not be able to stay away from controversy with leadership problems early on. And then Hoiberg and Butler says this, Wade says that, Rondo on Instagram, and then now this. This is a team that was floating around that 8th seed, and I have to agree. I think this is the nail in the coffin. I think, the Bulls will be kept out of the postseason for a second consecutive year, which is, I think, unacceptable for that organization, which seemed to be in the right direction just a couple of seasons ago.
And I mean, when you have a player like Jimmy Butler on the team, it shouldn't be quite as hard to get into the playoffs. But I want to touch on the point that Jonathan had. And Wade is still a good player in this league, and he kind of impacts the game in different ways, especially when he's not asked to such a big role as a playmaker and scorer. So mentioning that, what do you think Wade's going to do next season? Do you think he's going to stay in Chicago? I think he has a player option for the year. Do you think he's going to stay in Chicago another season, try to get another big deal, or do you think he's going to hop onto a contender and take a smaller contract?
I could see him doing one of three things. I could see him staying the extra year in Chicago just to get his money. I could also see him looking for a bigger paycheck for perhaps a different organization, because he can't like the situation that team's in right now. So I could see him trying to shopping himself. I know Denver were interested, and
Denver was very interested in him.
Yeah, so he may look at teams like Denver to try and maybe help them make a playoff push next season, maybe sign a 1-year contract. But then there's a third option, which is probably the least likely, but would maybe be the nicest one to see. With all the success Miami's had this season, what do you guys think about Dwyane Wade going back for less money and retiring with the Miami Heat?
I mean, I think it's a possibility, but I don't know if that relationship with Pat Riley and Dwyane Wade, I think he might still be a little bit not happy about that, because I know it was documented last year that he didn't really communicate well with Wade, and even Riley, I think, said into the season they didn't really necessarily handle that situation right. What about a fourth option where he takes a smaller contract and he goes and plays with LeBron in Cleveland?
Yeah, that's possible too.
Yeah, that's always possible.
I mean, especially like if it depends on, I think it depends if he's interested in the money or not. If he wants to win, I think that's the easiest possibility for him. LeBron will definitely do anything he can to get Wade, his boy, on his team. So, obviously, I don't know if he would even start. He might start, or he could be a 6-man for that team. He's definitely still a good player, and that would be a really interesting thing. I don't think he's going to stay in Chicago. Like Harris mentioned, Jonathan, you mentioned, like, this has been a nasty situation. It's more likely that Wade leaves Chicago and they trade Butler and they just go full reset mode in Chicago. And if he wants his money, a team like Denver, another team that's on the rise that wants to make that playoff push and maybe jump 2 seeds in the playoffs, they might go try to make a move at Wade. It's interesting to see what his value will be at contract-wise in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know about him going to Cleveland. Like you said, it's always a possibility. In his relationship with LeBron, it will be a big factor in that. But I just don't see how he helps them with what they need and what they're looking to add. He's a poor 3-point shooter. Although he did get better this season, he's still not a great 3-point shooter. He's not very reliable with the injuries. Although, again, he did play in quite a few games this year.
57, I think.
Yeah, so, that, by Dwyane Wade's standards, is not bad, right?
Yeah, I think that's about like his average.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but he's missed a lot of time in the past, and he's had some full seasons where he's played like 79, but he's also had seasons where he's played less than 57. So,
yeah.
I think Denver is a real possibility. I almost kind of like to see that's a team that I think needs some veteran leadership.
It would be really interesting too, because like he would add a different element to that team, and he wouldn't necessarily have to be that key cog, but he would be able to help them close games when needed and make that play when necessary.
I'll tell you something though. If LeBron can go back and amend the relationship with Dan Gilbert, there's certainly hope for Dwyane Wade and Pat Riley to patch things up and have him retire with the Heat.
Yeah, that is true. That is a possibility. And, I mean, the Heat have been really good this year for what was expected of them, especially after the start. They were 11-19, and now I think they're 33-35. This is a team that's most likely going to try to make that late push and might grab that 8th seed. If not, they'll still have a really, I would say, successful season with the player development that they've had. Spoelstra's got a lot out of some guys that we did not expect to see this much out of. So things are looking brighter in Miami than I think a lot of people anticipated, and especially for the future.
Agreed.
But in other talk this week, we had Steph Curry was asked who he thought would win MVP or who should win MVP this season. He said James Harden. And then another reporter went up to Russell Westbrook and asked him what he thought about this statement by Curry. And Westbrook said, "I don't care. It don't matter what he say. Who is he?" So what do you guys think about this? Obviously, this is Westbrook being Westbrook. Does this really matter, or is this kind of what you expect, or the whole situation's stupid?
It's the whole situation's ridiculous. The reporter shouldn't have asked him in the first place what he thought about it, because you can kind of predict what Russell Westbrook's going to say in situations like this at this point in his career. So I wasn't surprised when I found out about it. It's kind of entertaining. It's a little bit disrespectful, but to be honest, I think Westbrook's just sick and tired of everybody from the Golden State Warriors. I think he just has bad blood with everybody in the organization. I know, from watching the games, you can tell there's bad blood on both sides. So I'm not surprised by it. It's like you said, Westbrook being Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I was Westbrook, I'd be pretty sick and tired of hearing about the Warriors and Kevin Durant. Obviously, you have to be pretty annoyed, especially with the type of season you're having. And then it hasn't happened quite as much, but a good 25% of the questions he's probably answered all season have been regarding the Warriors or Kevin Durant. And at this point, he's probably just like, fuck it, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to answer the most ruthless way I can. Ruthless,
there's that word. Savagery.
Yeah, I was trying to pull it out for you, Harris.
Yeah, man, I actually do think he's the MVP this year. I know it's going to be close down the stretch, and there's still some games to be played. But yeah,
Harden just had a 40-point triple-double last night.
Yeah, it's going to be close. It's definitely going to be close. It's definitely a discussion.
Well, I was talking about that. Going into this final stretch of the season, we got, I think, 15 to 10 games left or whatever. What's going to be the biggest thing that you watch? Is it going to be the MVP race, the race for the 8 seed, the race for the 1 seed? What are you concerned with the most in this final stretch?
Well, the MVP race is going to be interesting just to see which of those two guys pulls it out in the end. I hear what you're saying, Harris, about Westbrook, but for me, the MVP all season long has been James Harden. Had Westbrook won a few more games, or if he can somehow sneak into that 4th seed, maybe I could be swayed, but I think the MVP race is going to be interesting and see which of those two guys are going to pull it out. But outside of that, I'm really interested to see how the seedings are going to end up, because I have an outside hope that Miami ends up playing Cleveland in the first round, and that Golden State end up dropping to the number 2 seed and OKC drop to the number 7 seed, so I can see that matchup as well.
Yeah, so you're looking for that dramatic first-round matchup. Not necessarily great games, but there's going to be some some blood in that matchups.
Especially yeah. You don't always need great games if you've got a lot of drama, right?
Yeah, especially OKC and the Warriors for a 7-game series is just going to be nuts, media-wise and player-wise and comment-wise. Harris, what about you? What are you concerned with?
I think the obvious answer would be to see who's going to win, the MVP award, but the Warriors and Spurs jockeying for 1-2. I think Golden State will be able to hold on, but that's really what it comes down to. I think I want the Miami Heat to make the playoffs also. I think, and honestly, I want the Nuggets to also. I've been thinking about. I want the Nuggets also to hold on to that 8 seed. So I'll be paying attention to that, the bottoms of both conferences, and who gets home court. But this is as interesting as an MVP race as I can remember.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of different avenues to kind of pay attention to down the final stretch, like you guys touched on, the MVP race, the 8 seed race, the 1st seed race, and even like the seeding and the in-betweens, those 4 through 6 and 7 seeds. There's still a lot of movement and possibility, and getting the right matchup in the first round can make all the difference. Getting on the right side of that bracket too can make all the difference. If you don't have to play Cleveland to the Eastern Conference Finals, that just increased your chances substantially. Same thing for Golden State on the other side.
Same thing for the Thunder trying to get away from the Rockets and/or Spurs.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like a big deal of this, and it's always an interesting thought if teams look at this and they're like, well, it wouldn't really matter if we dropped a seed. We might actually help us out. I'm always interested to see if coaches have that mindset. Obviously, everyone's going to always say they want to win every game, but when they rest players, like I know the few seasons ago when the Nets were coached by Jason Kidd, it was like the last few games of the season, they had the possibility to jump up a seed or two if they won those games, but instead they rested all their guys and ended up getting a matchup with Toronto in the first round who they beat. So someone could maybe argue that they did that purposely. Do you guys think that's a possibility with some of these teams, or they're just trying to win as many games as possible?
I can see it happening. It makes a lot of sense. I think it would be silly for coaches not to notice that and kind of take a look at how their matchups are going to line up because, more so than talent in the playoffs, matchups probably predict the games a little bit more so. So I think that absolutely someone on the coaching staff is keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you have veteran guys, it kind of makes sense to give them a few extra games of rest too, especially when you're going to have these grind-out series where your starter is going to have to play a majority of the minutes.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to be interested in the other races too. I think there's still probably a race for Defensive Player of the Year. I know a lot of people have mentioned Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, even still Kawhi Leonard. That'll be a fun thing to keep an eye on. And I'm still interested to see who's going to win Rookie of the Year, if they're going to give it to Embiid or because his lack of games, it's going to end up being Saric. What do you guys think?
I think Saric's going to win that.
He's really turned it on. Sargent's really turned it on. Like when Embiid went out, he's kind of like a do-it-all type of player too. That's what I like about him. Philly's got a pretty nice future if they can stay healthy.
Definitely, yeah. The thing about Saric is that he was drafted 2 years ago?
Yeah, two or 3 years ago. Yeah.
So he spent some time in Europe and still only 21, 22. A player that I don't know if they knew exactly what they were getting as far as him exceeding expectations and becoming what looks like to be a potential all-star there.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what I heard about him before the season and when I saw him in I think the Olympics, it was that he's like a type of all-around player. He's just like a basketball player, one of those guys that's just going to make plays that help you win games.
Yeah, no, definitely. I could see that.
And I think he's a pretty good fit next to Embiid for the future too. So, but kind of like what we did last week when we did the jump ball, I got another game for you guys. This is going to be a guess who game. I'm going to ask you who had the most this season in a specific category, and you're going to try to make your best guess. So we'll start off with the obvious one. Who had the highest scoring game in the NBA this season of 60 points?
Klay Thompson.
Russell Westbrook.
Jonathan.
I don't remember.
Klay Thompson, 60 points. Russell Westbrook was actually number 2 with 58 points. Pretty close.
I forgot about that Klay Thompson game where he only touched the ball for 11 minutes or something like that.
Oh yeah, and I
think he did it on 29 shots against the Pacers.
Sounds right.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Most rebounds in this game this season at 25.
Rudy Gobert.
Whiteside?
Well, you're both correct because they both had 25 this season, so that was a tie. Most assists in a game this season at 22.
James Harden.
Harden.
Westbrook, 22.
Oh.
John Wall had 20 yesterday. And
Has Harden had a 20-assist game or no?
No, and Ricky Rubio had 19 the other night.
Rubio.
Who has the most steals in a game this season at 10?
I want to say Draymond.
I'm going to say the Greek Freak.
And the answer is Draymond Green at 10.
Wow.
Marcus Smart at number 2. And number 3 is kind of surprising. It's Steph Curry at 7.
Greek Freak doesn't have that. Is it up there?
No, not top 3.
Oh, yeah,
all right. Most blocks in a game, 8. And there's 2 guys tied for this, and they have a lot in common.
Rudy Gobert and DeAndre Jordan.
Anthony Davis.
No, the answer is Brooke and Robin Lopez.
Wow.
I told you they had a lot in common. And then number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo with 7.
Wow. 8 blocks in a season. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I think Brooke had a game where he had 8 blocks and he had 5 threes, and it was some type of record or something.
I think those were all of Brooke Lopez's blocks this season. They all came in one game.
I don't know about that, but
Draymond Green actually leads the NBA in steals, I think. It's close. he might. It's when's the last time a forward led the NBA?
Yeah, Draymond Green does leave the NBA in steals at 2.1.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna go with. So I asked you some stats about players. Now I'm gonna ask you some guess who stats about teams. Who's had the most assists in a game this season?
I'd say the Cavs.
Harris.
Rockets.
Warriors. 47, 45, 41.
I should have said that. That was dumb.
Most points in a game.
Houston Rockets.
I'm going to take a random guess. The Pelicans.
Warriors, Nets.
Oh. Wow.
149, 144, and 143.
That Nets. I think the Nets did it against the Pelicans.
Yeah, they had some ridiculous game against the Pelicans where they blew them out. Most 3-pointers in a game this season.
That one. That was
Cavs.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
that is correct. Cavs at number 25, and Nuggets had 24 in a game, and the Rockets had 24 in a game. So, pretty interesting stuff. You guys did pretty good. You got a few of them right, but I think, what do you think was the most surprising one?
Not so much a leader, but seeing the Nets as having the third highest scoring game in the league, that was a big surprise for me. And then Brook Lopez with 8 blocks in a game.
Yeah, the Lopez brothers with 8 blocks apiece, probably.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty surprised that the Nets were the third highest scoring game of the season. And I mean, Brook with 8 blocks is a lot. It's probably his career high, I would think. And for him and Robin both to be tied for 8, I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I thought a lot of the other stuff was kind of predictable, but some of the guys definitely, are better than I think you thought they were. It's easy to forget about Klay Thompson, and every season it seems like he has one of these games where he's like scorching hot.
Yeah, that game was ridiculous. On 29 shots too.
Yeah. It
would be interesting to see what he can do on his own.
Yeah, honestly, I wonder that about a lot of players. Like, what would they do in a different situation, or when more stress was put on them? Like, what do you think Klay Thompson could be if he wasn't on Golden State? And say you put him on the Brooklyn Nets, where he would be, probably the key cog on that team.
It's hard to say because a lot of his points and things come from catch and shoot positions. Like, he's not the greatest when it comes to making space for himself. So, yeah, it's hard to say.
If you had to put a number on his scoring average, what would you guys say? If hypothetically we put him on the Nets or the Sixers?
25.
22.
22? I actually think he'd be a pretty good fit on the Nets with Lopez and Lin. But obviously that's not going to happen. If you had to pick one player in the league that you'd want to see in a different situation to see what they could do on a different team, who would it be?
Draymond Green, because I'm convinced he would not be an all-star on another team.
I was waiting for that.
And I would just like to see that proved right.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'd like to see – I know for so long this answer was like a lock to see Cousins, we always said was, man, give him another opportunity. And now he's with the Pelicans, and obviously that's going to take some time to develop. But I don't know. I think maybe Jokic in a better situation, but that team's up and coming. Jimmy Butler probably might want out of Chicago as a possibility. We've heard stars names and of rumors of guys moving places such as Paul George, but I don't know if there's a guy like that. Who else are you guys thinking of?
I'm thinking Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
I'm really intrigued to see Kyrie have his own team. Obviously, he had it earlier in his career.
For a while, but he was
younger. And I would say at this point in his career, actually, and after being with LeBron for a little bit, I think he has a better understanding and his skill level has risen. So it'd be interesting to see what he could do with his own team.
What about Brandon Knight?
That's an interesting play because that guy was great in Milwaukee, and that team was headed to the playoffs, and they looked pretty dangerous, and they traded him for Michael Carter-Williams, and both guys have had no success since that trade. And I think Brandon Knight will probably be moved this year because he just got shut down for the season.
Well, Bledsoe went down, and they asked Brandon Knight to play, and he said, "Oh, no, I don't want to play. I've got back spasms."
Yeah.
So now they got Tyler Ulis playing starting point guard.
And he's been doing pretty well, too.
Yeah, he's gonna be a good player. Him and Marquise Chris are gonna make a good one too in that team. Oh, and they've got Devin Booker on that team too. So
yeah,
they got a bright future.
and Bender, who hasn't even really got to play because he's been injured this season. So,
oh, that's right. I completely forgot about him.
And I mean, even that guy Alan Williams, the center. I mean, and T.J. Warren. I've been kind of on this Phoenix hype train for a little bit because I think that they have a lot of assets too because they have some first round picks as well from the Goran Dragic trade. So watch out for the Suns.
I also think maybe C.J. McCollum outside of Lillard's shadow.
Yeah, we heard that they thought about moving him earlier in the season. They shut that down, but that'd be another player. Anybody else you guys can think of?
Andrew Wiggins, maybe.
Beal.
He was the number one option.
Yeah. Or Wiggins. Yeah, Wiggins and maybe like a different system too. And like where it's kind of weird, the Timberwolves in this sense that they have Towns and Wiggins. You know, how many opportunities do you have to have like a player of that caliber in back-to-back seasons?
What about Kawhi?
Kawhi too. You know, it would a more like free roaming coach, not such a system team would be interesting to see how much they feature Kawhi. But I mean, they've run a lot more ISOs for him this season than they have in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
There's definitely somebody that we're missing.
I'm looking. I don't see anything.
Kristaps Porzingis, maybe away from Melo.
I would love to see Kristaps in a different, a stable organization.
I'd like to see Melo in a stable organization.
Yeah,
as well,
actually Melo too, because Melo has definitely had his fair share of unnecessarily mean treatment to him. It's not like the teams. Me and Harris have talked about this before. That like he's never really had an amazing team in New York. So maybe if he's moved, he gets on a team and he's maybe the second or third option offensively. It'd be nice to see, and nice to see him play with a true point guard.
Yeah.
But that wraps it up for today. Thank you guys. Thanks for hopping on. And as always, thanks everybody for listening. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you next week.
All right, guys. And enjoy some of that madness and enjoy the rest of the games this weekend.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
No problem, John.